All right. Good afternoon, everybody. We are here for our last session of the day in the user marketing track. A couple of announcements, just because this is the last session of the day. We hope everyone has had an amazing first day of WordCamp. I know from an organizer perspective, we couldn't be happier with how things are going. Obviously, there's going to be a couple glitches here and there, but so far it's been an overall great experience, and we hope you have enjoyed it too. So we are going to have closing remarks after this. That will be in both of the tracks. And then we hope you'll also stick around for some fun with WP Game Show for our after party. And there will be a link to that on the homepage of the WordCamp Kent website. So we hope we'll see you there. Now, I do want to introduce our speaker, Tim Reynolds. He's going to be talking about low budget photo editing. Tim, we're happy to have you here. He is a traditional film photographer who worked for many years doing custom photo lab work, and now he does custom work for people using GIMP to open eyes, fix colors, and create special effects. And I know Tim is he's very excited to share some of the basics with GIMP with you guys today. So take it away.
Hello, I'm here to talk to you today about low budget photo editing. We're going to be using GIMP. GIMP is an open source image manipulation program, officially known as GNU Image Manipulation Program. GNU is the operating system type that it works on, and I'll be using it on a Linux Mint computer, just for information. GIMP can provide you with all kinds of incredible power and options, and we're going to walk through a few of them. Who am I? Well, my name is Tim McReynolds. I live in Cedar Park, Texas. I spent my childhood in Kansas, moved to Texas in 1982, not 18. I've been taking pictures since I got my first camera in 1965. I'm still trying to get good at it. I have 2 kids, both adults, or at least they tell me they are. And my wife and I have been together for 33 years. I owned a photo lab in the heyday of film photography, and we had the first digital restoration station in Williamson County, Texas. I used Windows 3.31, Photoshop 3 on a computer with 128 megabytes of RAM. The RAM alone costs $12.50 a RAM, so it was about $1,600 just for that much RAM. It was a long time ago. I've been using Linux since '98, and of course GIMP at that time came into my life, and I've never really looked back. GIMP was only 2 years old at that time, but it was still an incredibly powerful free tool that was available in the Linux operating system. It was already available also in Windows and Mac, so it was very widespread early on. Now I'm going to turn off this camera because it hogs too many resources and too much screen image. Besides, nobody wants to look at me. How can anything be lower cost than $10 a month that I would spend on my photo suite? Well, the cost of GIMP is free. It's free, as they say on that silly commercial that drives me crazy. And it's open source. So if you find something that you want to do to make it operate better for you, then by all means, program it. Put it out in the wild. People would love it. The new version, which is what we'll be working on today, is 2.10.18. This was released on the 23rd of February of this year, and it's got some incredible new options that make it even more powerful. And as I said before, GIMP runs on Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. It also runs on BSD and Solaris. The only thing it really doesn't run on is Android and iOS. Information can be found out by going to GIMP, www.gimp.org, a very good resource where they've got a lot of tutorials and a lot of information about how to use GIMP and get better at it. This is a photo of me and my brother as created in GIMP. Notice the familial resemblance. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to resize an image. It's a very basic thing that you need to do when you're setting up a website. If you take images that are 4,000 by 6,000 and you want a thumbnail that's 4,000 by 6,000 pixels, it's going to take forever, especially if you've got a whole page of 4,000 by 6,000 thumbnails that you want loaded before the user can see the full page. Reduce the sizes. Make sure that your images are the right size. And this is whether you're using WordPress or any other type of website. It does not pay to have huge images that you just reduce the visibility of. Create new images. Create a 150 by 150 pixel thumbnail. That helps your users to see it quicker. Now, just as a disclaimer, I'm not here to demonstrate my amazing photography skills. We're going to learn how to use a GIMP. These are not artistic shots. Most of them are snapshots. Granted, these are some of my better pictures. So don't take my advice on photography. I know how to do it. I usually don't. Then after resizing the image, we're going to modify the exposure. I'm going to show you a couple of ways that are really quick and efficient to make that image have a better exposure when you've messed them up, when I've messed them up. Not that you would ever do that. We're going to be modifying colors, correcting some of the blemishes. This is from a negative from 1980. It was on Kodachrome film. At that time, that was the best film available, and as long as film was made, that was the best film available for doing transparencies. Very responsive. It was also very slow. It was 64 ASA, which means that it used a slow shutter speed pretty much even in bright sunshine. You would need to use a tripod. It's recommended that you would use a tripod. This was a handheld shot. As you can tell, it's very soft focus. That was not because I had a fancy soft focus lens. It's because, well, I handheld it. We're going to fix a couple of the blemishes. We may change the color. I'll show you how to crop. The next thing we're going to do is how to do stupid tricks. This is a composite image, obviously. And I'm going to show you what I did to create that image. It's not the best image in the world. We're going to modify it a little bit to where I would have liked it to have been before I put it in this slide for my presentation. So, now on to the demonstrations. I've just opened up GIMP. GIMP is a photo imaging software that is going to provide incredible power. This is what it does when it opens up. You may also have it with the toolbar, with the toolbox when you open up a GIMP image. And if you do, this is what you might see. You might also see it as very long. I'm going to select a tool. We're going to pull up the tool options. I'm doing this so I can show you how to change GIMP to where it's a more familiar feel. It's a little easier to work with. It's a little less scattered. I'm also going to open up layers, which is Control L. We'll walk through layers a little bit on this image, but mostly on the next one. I'm going to join these two into the same toolbox. So I bring that over here, open it right there. They are joined now. This makes it a little smoother when you go to change the windows. We go to single window mode, and that brings everything together. Thank goodness. As you can see, we've got the tool options, we've got the layers, and we've got our toolbox. The toolbox is where you pick your tools that you're going to use every day, all through the images. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to right-click, and we want to save the image as an XCF. There's one reason for that. When you're working with JPEG images, you're working with a compressed image. That compressed image loses some of the detail every time you resave it because it recompresses it. So wherever a JPEG is white, like back in this area, there's no information about that pixel because it doesn't matter. The hex code is nothing. So when it resaves this image as a JPEG file, it's going to recompress it, and you lose detail every time you do that. So the first thing we'll do, this is a traditional image shot on a Nikon 3400. Right-click on it, go to Image, go to Scale Image. As you see, it's 4,000 by 6,000, and it's at 300 dots per inch. Online, you don't need it over 100 dots per inch. Some people will argue that. Depends on whether you've got a retina display. Those are all factors. But for general viewing, 100 dots per inch, maybe 125 works fine. We're going to change this size. Now, if you'll notice, there's a little hook right here. I can't remember what they're called, but I'll call them a hook for today. When you disconnect these two lines, that means we're going to change one and not the other. So let's go down to 2,000 dots wide and scale it. Needless to say, that's not what we wanted. You can right-click, undo Scale Image. Now we're going to resize the image, scale it again. We're going to lock those together, and we're going to make this 1,500 dots wide. That's 2257 tall. Change this, don't change it. Right now, I'm not going to change it because this is not an image that I'm going to save, and I can scale it. This then shows how it will look at 12.5%. Down here, you can zoom it in 100%. And if you'll notice, we've got a lot of room around that image, a lot of definition. So now I'm going to undo everything I've done on this particular image because I've already saved it as a smaller image. This is 1,500 by 2247. One recommendation that I might provide is when you create images and they're going to be in a gallery, if you have multiple sized images all over the place, the user has to hunt for the next button because it's going to change. But if all of your images are 1,500 by 2247, that works great. Say, for example, we're going to go with a 2,000 by whatever image. So now what we want to do is we want to change the canvas size to 2,000. And you'll notice it didn't change vertically. So let's reset it. Grab that. Now we have it, and we can hit center. We're going to resize. Now, all of your images have a canvas size that's going to be uniform. It allows for better usability for the individuals, for the users, And for old farts like me, it helps when we don't have to look for an extra button to move things around. It's one of those things that's entirely optional. I just like to see it all the same size. Personal preference. So the way that I just readjusted that size is I held down the control button and used the mouse scroll. We can take it down, up, change it. You can also do the minus button. Minus button is the exact same as doing the scroll. You can also increase the size that way. All right, so now we want to make that look like an ostrich instead of a ball on a stick. So the first thing we'll do is go over to the left where you see the layers toolbar, and we are going to duplicate that layer. Now comes the fun part. Makes it very, very easy to change the exposure on an underexposed image. Go to the mode of the layer, and we're going to go to screen. And that changes everything. Now when we scroll to see that face, we've got a lot more definition. Now you can even change the opacity, the translucence of this image. We're going to drop it down a little bit. You can see that dark face shining through even more as we change that exposure back. That's one way to do it. Let's hide that layer. And now I'm going to do nothing more than the dodge and burn tool, which is right here. I'm going to dodge, burn, Shift D is a shortcut, S for the smudge, and I'll show you more on the smudge in a little bit. We click the different tab here. We've got 150 pixel brush. We're going to make sure that we only affect the shadows, and we're going to dodge it. You can change the force, the hardness, to make the brush a little softer around the edges so that it doesn't affect directly the other areas. Now, I'm not holding down on the brush right now. Now I am. And of course, the computer's acting slow. Try to see if it'll catch up. Oh, it's giving me a warning message down at the bottom saying the active layer doesn't have anything on it. So I just messed up that other layer. Now we can see better. Now, as you can see, I've got a excessive exposure. That I've compensated for. I don't want to do that, so I'm going to go back to Control Z. That takes out everything that I've done with that brush. Now I've turned on the other image. As you can see, you have little eyes here. And that's essentially all we're going to do with that image. I'm not going to save it. However, now that it's gotten this image, you want to flatten the image. Should you flatten it, you go to Image, go to Flatten Image. It's going to use black because black is set for the background. So we're going to undo that, Control Z. We're going to put white as the background. And again, this is something that you're going to use your creative rights and powers. And that's going to give you the right canvas size so that all of your pictures are the same size. Ta-da! Image number 1. Now, image number 2. This is my Kodachrome image, which I have previously done some work on. Let's go back to revert. And we're going to revert this back to the original image. As you can see, it was saved as an XCF file. XCF, again, is the GIMP formatting. It's designed specifically for GIMP. Nobody else, I don't think anybody else can open those, but GIMP can open up a PSD file. It can open up several other file formats. For example, if I were to go here and say export as, it gives me an option to save it as a PNG. It also gives me pics, text. I don't know what text would look like. XHTML, C, all of these various things, a GIF or GIF, ICO, MNG, a lot of these things are things that I don't use. Photoshop image is a PSD file. You can save it as a PDF. PostScript. All of these files you can export to. A TIFF file is one thing that saves it as pretty much a raw format, which works if you're going to be moving from one platform, one image editor to another. So we're going to take this image and we're going to use the smudge tool. Smudge. I'm going to smudge that out. Basically what that does is that blends the image along that wall so that it will look similar, and it kind of takes that blast of junk that was on the slide out so that it's not nearly as obvious, not as distracting as it was before. Now this image obviously does not have the best cropping, so I'm going to show you the cropping tool. And the good thing is I can back out of any of these and I can save it at any point and be able to modify it later should I desire. Now we're going to crop it. We go to the crop tool. And the crop tool is very straightforward. Just like that. Hit enter. We're good to go. Now you can do cloning and clone a part of the image. So that we can draw through some of the other distractions in the front so that they're not quite so blaringly obvious. One of the disadvantages of doing it this way is as soon as you get into the old part of the image, for example, I want to move this bottle. So I start here. That works fine. However, over here, I start bringing that bottle back. So every time you release the mouse when you're doing the clone tool, it will refresh whatever's underneath. So if you do this, it's going to give you a better coverage than if you were to do something like this, because it still doesn't think that there's any changes underneath that bottle. Now all we did was moved it. So the clone tool comes in very handy quite frequently, yet there's some caveats about using it. It will, for example, in this texture, it's going to be hard to match some of those texture spots. It's just a little bit easier to use than some of the other tools. You can also take sections of the image, Control C, Control V, and then let's move that down here. When you do something like that, you may want to do a feathering on the edges. What the feathering does is it softens those edges so that they're not such a big contrast, a sharp edge to another sharp edge. So we're going to go to a 10, okay, let's go to 15. And you'll notice it changed it a little bit on the edges. They're not quite as sharp as they were before. So we're going to do Control C, Control V. Now when we move it down here, it blends a little bit better because those edges were feathered and they were a little gentler than the crisp, sharp edges of a screenshot. So that's the end on that one. Oh, I did want to change the color a little bit. Let's walk through color changes. Colors, you can change exposure. You can add a split view so that you see what the original was as compared to the new image. You can also drag the bar. And this is probably not the best image to demonstrate some of this on, but you'll definitely see a big difference between the images here as we go through these changes. The black level can be changed. As you see, part of the hair is turning blacker. We're kind of washing it out a little bit. There's another option of colors. It's actually more contrast and brightness. This is what I use mostly in black and whites. And as you can see, you can do that. You can still go back to the split view, which the split view is a new option I'm finding that's probably one of the best things in 2.10 to come out. That split view allows you to see what you had and what you have. So you can change that. Now we go back, go to colors. We're going to change, let's change the color temperature. This is difficult on this because the color temperature is actually from an incandescent light, but because of the way the negative was scanned, or the slide was scanned, it shows as daylight. So it thinks the original light temperature is 6,500 Kelvin, which is daylight. So if you want to light with fluorescent lights, 6,500 Kelvin is what the light temperature of daylight is. So we're going to drop it. Now let's go up, turn it a little blue. The intended temperature. So that doesn't change it a lot. Let's go back to this one and we'll see about color temperature. as you can see, the lower the temperature, the more blue things get. When you increase the original temperature, you cool everything off. Daylight has, if you were to use an incandescent film, back in the day of film, daylight has a almost blue tone to it. But most films were balanced for daylight, including the Kodachrome that I shot on that original one. You could add filters. You still can add filters that will compensate for light temperature. Everything gets a little different and wonky at that point, and some interesting effects can be had. So we're going to cancel that. Now we're going to take me and add me to Shrek. Lovely Shrek. Now on this one I have selected the outline for Shrek and I've floated it. I can take Shrek and use the crosshairs here and move him off, down, up, around, doesn't matter. Control Z, Control Z. Now we can see that he's just got the crawling ants around him, which is the mask highlight. Now we're going to grab me. I'm going to show you how to use the select tool. There's a couple of ways you can do it. The foreground select is one that you can use. I'm not the biggest fan of that one so far. Maybe I'm just not learning how to use it right. But it does provide a quick down and dirty option for you, especially if you have a very complex foreground, which a lot of photographs do. This one is considerably easier. But you walk around the image with the crosshair with this lasso, which is the exact same tool that you use in the free select. Went all the way around, and we're going to match up down here on the lower left sleeve. And I know that this is going through fast. I've got like 3 minutes left to finish up so that I can get to any questions anybody might have. Now, down at the bottom, remember how we went all the way across here? You don't have to join those up. You just double click. Now, as you can see, it went all the way through. Now you hit enter, and that shows a mask. Now, it comes back with a paintbrush, and we're going to paint the inside of this, which to me is kind of double work, especially on this image where there's a very clear foreground and background. But this is to demonstrate it. It's not like I'm going to be creating a fine piece of work here. So that selects everything in that side. On the inside of that, do the preview mask. Now, if you'll look at that, this is everything that's covered in blue is not included in what you want to select. That's one of the reasons that I do not like this particular tool. I may not know how to use it very well, but it seems like double work. So that's everything we've got. Now you can go through here and go to select and grow. Let's grow everything 5 pixels. Let's go 10. What the heck? That clears out a lot of that, but you've still got a lot of the sections that are not selected. So what I want to do now is go to select, and I want to shrink it because I don't want all that background. Let's shrink it to 3. That helped a little, not a lot. Now we can go down here, select the mask, and now I'm going to take a paintbrush and just make sure I've got everything selected. You select the black, you deselect whatever's underneath the brush. If you select white, this deletes that mask so that it's no longer there. You saw the creeping ants, crawling ants before. Now we won't see it. So they're not there anymore. Another thing that you can do to minimize that background that's selected there is right-click, select, and feather. By feathering, we're going to feather 10 pixels. Again, it softens the area and provides a less harsh difference between front and back. So now I'm going to copy. Copy obviously is Control-C. Now I'm going to go to the image with Shrek. I'm going to simply paste, Control-V. Let's deselect Shrek. Okay. So now Shrek is his own layer again. And I'm going to paste me as a new layer. You can paste in place, paste a new layer, paste a new image, use a new brush. Obviously, this is not what I wanted to happen. So I will resize this layer, scale layer, and I'm going to drop him down to 700. Not because of a hard and fast rule, because that's what I think I probably am going to need. So that's what I needed. So now I go to the arrow, click on it, move it over here. Now let's let's control the movement of Shrek and his background all at the same time. We're going to select Shrek. We're going to move him to the right because I don't need him that close over my shoulder. That works. Now I'm going to make Shrek's image I'm going to set that to layer to image size. And now this image goes all the way from left to right. I don't have to worry about that. I can select this background, select the clone tool, I do need to modify this and make it to layer to image size also. I'm not going to worry too much about that. We're going to do a clone tool. I hold down Control, select that. Now, because of the fact that I'm covering up the background underneath my head, I don't have to worry about it too much because it's going to blend together a little bit quicker, a little easier. And now we have an image. Very simple process. That's really all there is to GIMP, except maybe 10,000 other things. And we're going to take a look at the last two slides. How can you too become an expert like me? Let me turn on my camera. Not that it's a pleasant sight, but because I paid all this money for a camera. How can you too become an expert in GIMP? Just like me? Well, first of all, I would definitely shoot your sights a little higher than that. But the GIMP www.gimp.org/tutorials. A lot of information on there. I learned a lot of things just by going through that, and I've been using the application for 22 years. YouTube.com has some amazing tutorials. Amazon.com has several GIMP manuals, very well put together, incredibly powerful, and some great insight. There's always, like with computers, like with WordPress, there's always 10 ways to do something. They may have something that's easier for you to understand. So my time is up. I appreciate you being with me today, and enjoy WordCamp, as there's lots to learn. May all your images be white balanced, and may all your backgrounds not take attention away from your subject. I thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Tim. Now we have you here. We have just a couple minutes for questions. I really appreciated the Shrek reference. It's quite a final product we ended up with.
I have determined that was way too much Tim, though.
Well, now you have a keepsake from this WordCamp, you and Shrek together. So, just really briefly, what are the main reasons why you choose GIMP, maybe over other like photo editing softwares? We just have a couple minutes left, so.
Sure. The biggest thing that I find GIMP useful for is a lot of the mundane, repetitive tasks. You can actually run scripts that will resize your images to a specific size. They will reset your colors. You can program all of that once you've learned how to use it. I don't use it that often for that, but I do for resizing and do custom dodging and burning of exposure points, and adding additional layers into it to add some depth and some clarity to some of the images. And the big thing is there's no monthly expense for using the GIMP. You can install it on your computer. It's installable on every type that most people use, Mac, Windows, and Linux, and it's very simple to learn. There's a lot of resources available for it.
Right. And now we have one more additional resource. You definitely, went through some of those finer points of how to do things. So we really appreciate it, Tim. I know you said that you will be around on Slack this afternoon. You're going to be joining us for the game show, and then you'll be around tomorrow too if people have questions, right?
That is correct.
Okay. And do you want to just explain your shirt really quickly? And then we'll sign off.
My website is www.baldz.com, and I make t-shirts for bald guys. About time we're trying to avoid discrimination by everybody that has hair. So if you're a bald guy, go grab a shirt.
All right. Well, thank you again so much, Tim, for being here. We really appreciate it. And we hope to see everyone at the WP Game Show. Well, for closing remarks after this, that will be very briefly at 4. And then, WP Game Show will kick off around 4:10. Get the link to that on the WordCamp Kent website. So thanks, everyone, for a great day, and we'll see you very shortly.